Good morning, Shavua Tov. Welcome to our Parsha class, the Parsha of Bo. Welcome, Lynn and Dina and Susan and Tom and Dylan and Zora and Michael. Thank you all for joining us, and for the many who are joining us on Facebook, Shavua Tov. Welcome. We are ready to begin our Parsha. We missed last week, and so much happened while we were gone. It's like you miss school one day and you hear, okay, so that day in school we didn't really learn much. There isn't that much to catch up. Wasn't a big deal. But one day, sometimes you miss a day in school. You find out that that's the day we cover so much ground, so much material. I gotta catch up on. So that was last week. These parshas are filled with content. So much going on. We are in the story of the Exodus of Egypt, and the Jewish people begin to see how the tables are being turned. They see the miracles, they see the plagues. Moses is coming and going. Pharaoh's being humiliated. This is where we're at. Chaim on the coffee. Okay, so we are Pasha of Boy or Bo, however you want to pronounce it. In the Goodness Chumash, page 398, 399, chapter 10 of Exodus. We're going to kind of maybe analyze or discuss the end of the Parsha, but just to kind of to bring you where we're, to where we're up to in the story. We left off with Moshe. 2 weeks ago, we spoke about Moshe speaking to God at the burning bush, and God tells him to go to Pharaoh. Well, since we've left off, Moshe did go to Pharaoh, and initially it became, he didn't see how this is where this is going. He didn't understand how this is going to help the Jewish people. Seemingly, it's getting worse, but eventually, we started seeing the plagues of blood and the frogs and the lice. We had 10 plagues. We had 7 in last week's Parsha, 3 in this week's Parsha. Each of these plagues were meant to break the Egyptians, and eventually the Jewish people leave Egypt. We all know the story. We all know Passover. So this week's Parsha, we speak about the last 3 of the plagues. And then we have the final plague, right? The final plague is the death of the firstborn. Pharaoh himself, it was a firstborn. This was really threatening his own life, and this is what breaks Pharaoh. Only temporarily, because we know that later, after he lets the Jewish people out, he starts chasing. He regrets it. He starts chasing the Jewish people, trying to bring them back. However, this at least breaks him for the time being, and he allows the Jewish people out, which is a very, very big deal. It's a very big deal because everyone knew that there's no one like Pharaoh. If the walls of Egypt are locked, are closed from anyone going in and out, there's no way that even an individual could run out, could escape. And of course not a whole nation of perhaps millions of people to go out in daylight, right in the middle of the day. Because initially Pharaoh came in the middle of the night, right at midnight when the plague hit. He came running to find Moses and Aaron. He says, "Go, just go now. Take all your people. Take whatever you want. Just go." And Moses says, "No, no, no, no. We're not leaving now in the middle of the night. We're not hiding. We're not sneaking out. We're going to go tomorrow at midday when everyone's up, when everyone sees us, when all the media is there. And we're going to go and leave Egypt." And that's exactly what happened. And so much so that later on, people in Canaan and Israel at the time, they said, "We heard about this. We heard it was major news. It was headlines in all the papers. Jewish people leave Egypt with permission from Pharaoh." It made no sense. Really made no sense. It's like people leaving Egypt, Russia, communist Russia, the Soviet Union. I mean, it made no sense, right? Whoever predicted this? And this is what happened. It was major news on that end. But also, it was major news for the Jewish people themselves. It wasn't only like now the Jewish people have finally broken free from these from the persecution and the slavery, the enslavement in Egypt that was there for so many years. But it also shaped the Jewish people. At this point, the Jewish people transition from being a family to becoming a nation. Now we are a nation of God. God chose us. He took these people out in order to serve God on the mountain, right? This is what Moses, every time Moshe came and warned Pharaoh about the plague, he said, listen, you got to take the Jewish people out. Shalach et ami. Send my people out. Via avduni, and they shall serve me in the desert, right? There's always like this condition. We're leaving Egypt in order to serve God, which means this becomes, this forms the Jewish nation, a nation serving God. So it's very, very significant, this idea of the exodus of Egypt. And as we know, anyone who has a little knowledge of the Jewish practice and the Jewish faith, a little bit, we know that we hear no end to this, right? The idea of the exodus of Egypt wasn't just something that happened, part of the history of the Jewish people, the same way we had Abraham, we had Isaac, and we had Jacob, and there are various stories and the incidents that happened to them that kind of shaped the future of the Jewish people. The exodus of Egypt wasn't just another story that happened to the Jewish people. This is like the quintessential incident to the Jewish people, so much so that it's all over the place. In our prayers, in our traditions, in our mitzvot, in our customs, there's always this thing. We do this to remember the exodus of Egypt. God wanted us to remember we were slaves and God took us out. This is where it began. And time and again in our tradition, we find this mention, this remembrance of the exodus of Egypt. Obviously, we have the Passover holiday where we sit down and have a Seder and recount the story of the Exodus. But more than just having a holiday to remember this, throughout the year, every day, we are constantly mentioning and reminding ourselves of this incident. We also find a very strong emphasis on educating the next generation, our children. And it's actually in the verse, and I want to read some of those verses inside, because we know the night of the Seder, we have many guests. We may have, Jack, our neighbor. We have Rachel, our friend. Right? We invite family and friends to sit together at a Passover Seder. However, we also have the 4 sons, right, that we talk about in the Haggadah. We have the wise, the Chacham, the wise son. We have the wicked son, the Rasha. We have the Tam, the ignorant, the ignoramus, right? The one that doesn't even know what to ask or how to ask or any specific details about the holiday. And then we have the She'eino Yodea Lisho, the one who does not even know what to ask. Like, he doesn't even ask the question. It's just there and just observing what's going on over here. And these 4 sons are mentioned in the Torah, because the Torah time and again mentions that your son will ask, tell me about Passover. And you will answer X, Y, and Z, right? So based on their questions, we kind of categorize them in these 4 categories. What type of son is asking this question? But it's so interesting, and it's obviously so important to in Judaism, the idea of education, the idea of passing on to the next generation. The Torah doesn't talk about this with other ideas, right? God gave us the Torah on Mount Sinai. Well, if your son one day will ask, tell me about the Torah, you shall answer them. You don't really find that in other areas of the Torah. But with Passover, this specifically, we find that the Torah emphasizes education. Educate your children. Educate your grandchildren. Make sure that this is something that's not forgotten. They will ask questions, have the answers for them. There are answers for them. Which, by the way, in Judaism, we don't shy away from questions, right? Don't ask any questions, blind faith, just do it. There is this concept of na'aseh v'nishma, right? Do and then understand. Meaning, even if you don't understand, you still got to do, right? The idea of the yoke of heaven, the Kabbalah soul, that don't wait till you fully have a full understanding, right? I'm not going to eat anything today until I understand understand how my biology works, how the nutrition works, and how the digestive system works, and what's healthy, what's unhealthy. So before I finish the course on studying why I need to eat, I'm not going to eat. No, first you got to eat, and then you figure out how it works if that interests you. Same thing as Judaism. First do and then understand. However, there is the idea of understanding. We don't shy away from any questions because Judaism is very proud, has that confidence. We have the answers. So ask the question. It's good. You may get satisfactory answers. You may have to search, but eventually the answers are there. It's like someone says, I don't want the government to come to inspect my house to make sure that everything's up to code. Why not? If you know that everything is fine in your house, let them come. You have any questions? We have all the answers. I don't want to be audited by the government. God forbid if the IRS is going to audit. Why? If you're happy with your books, if you're proud that you know you're doing it right, should be audited. Maybe be a little pain, but I'm confident that they're not going to find any problems, right? If I know there are problems, I don't want to be audited, right? In other words, if you aren't confident with your religion, with your way of life, I don't ask any questions. I'm not sure if I have any answers. No, Judaism says ask questions. And we educate our children. You have a question, don't shy away from questions. Ask the questions. There are answers. There are answers to these questions. So that's what we find. Another thing we find in the holiday of Passover, constantly your children are going to ask. Let them ask. That's a good thing, and we have the answers. I want to read inside a little bit of these of the four children, the four sons who asked the questions, and each question has a little bit of a different answer based on the question. So we're going to jump to page 415. Chapter 12, verse 25. In the Goodness Limit, we're on page 415. This is the first time the Torah mentions that your son will ask a question, right? The Torah is thinking about the future. There's a future. Here and now, we all know what happened. We all just experienced Passover. But what will the next generation say? They're going to ask questions. We have to have the answers to them tomorrow, in 10 years, in 50 years. You may be a Zaidi. You have your great-grandchild on your lap, and they say, Zaidi, tell me, when you were a child, were you in Egypt? Oh, of course I was in Egypt. Tell me about it. What is this all about? What are these matzahs all about? What's this Seder all about? Tell me what happened, right? And you say, oh, let me tell you what happened, right? So let's see the first time we have a question. Verse 25. It will be when you will go into the land that God will give to you as he has promised, as he has spoken. And you will guard this avodah, this service that God is referring to, the service of Passover, commemorating Passover every year, which is interesting because if you notice, it talks about when will you commemorate Passover? When you go into Israel, which means that the Torah is telling us right away that the Jewish people weren't really obligated in commemorating Passover while they were in the desert. Now we know that they ended up in the desert for 40 years. Plan A, so to say, was that they wouldn't end up for 40 years in the desert. They were going to leave Egypt. They spent 7 weeks on the road. They received the Torah at Mount Sinai on Shavuos, right? And then the plan was they head into Israel. But they sinned. They sinned with the golden calf, and then mainly they sinned with the sin of the spies. So they ended up for 40 years in the desert. During those 40 years, they did not have the obligation to bring the Paschal lamb, to eat the matzah, to get rid of the chametz, right? All of the laws of Passover only applied, as you say clearly in this verse, when they enter into the land of Israel. And if you look back, did the Jewish people commemorate, did they keep Passover in the desert? So the truth is, they didn't. The first year they did, mentioned clearly in the Torah that the first year, the first anniversary of the exodus of Egypt, it's the first time we're celebrating. It's 1 year. There they brought the Paschal lamb. We have the famous story of those who were ritually impure and they weren't able to bring the right. That happened the first year, but for the next 39 years, they actually have not offered a Paschal lamb. They did not commemorate Passover, at least not the way it is in the Torah, until they entered into Israel. Okay, verse 26. V'haya, and it will be, ki yoimru aleichem b'neichem, when your sons will say to you, ma ha'avoda hazois lachem. What is this avodah? What is this service? What is this ritual service to you? What's going on? What is this all about? But the wording is precise. What is this service to you? And right away we have a key, a hint. Who is this child? What type of child is this? Who says, what is the service to you? Says the Haggadah, this is referring to the wicked child, the Rasha, the wicked child. Why is he wicked? Because he's saying, what is the service to you? As in, like, this is your thing, not my thing. Don't bother me with this whole Passover business. I'm going out to have a good piece of a good, chametz sandwich. But you guys, old school people, you guys are commemorating this whole Passover business. What is the service to you? Right? That is a wicked type of question. Wicked as in like someone who doesn't feel this is part of, that he is part of it. So we refer to this as the wicked child. Wicked sounds very harsh, but the child who doesn't feel part of it. But it's a child nonetheless. So the Torah says, don't spank him. Don't throw him out of your house. Don't ignore him. The wicked child, I can't deal with this person. You got to answer them. They have a question. You got to answer. So what's the answer? Verse 27. Va'amartem, you should tell them, Zevach Pesach hu la Hashem. This is a Passover slaughtering, a offering to Hashem, because Hashem Pasach abatim b'nei Yisrael, because God has skipped over the homes of the Jewish people in Egypt. When he was plaguing, he was striking the Egyptians, and he has saved our homes. And we have prostrated ourselves. We have bowed to Hashem and thanking Hashem for saving us. So this is what we refer to when we answer the wicked child. Let's skip a little bit. Let's skip all the way to page 419, 418, where we have chapter 13. After the Torah describes the exodus of Egypt, how all the Jewish people left Egypt. We're talking about many, many people. The Torah specifies 600,000 were men ages 20 to 60, which means there were maybe additional 600,000 above 60 and under 18, under 20. And then if you assume that there's a similar amount of women, we're talking about millions of people leaving Egypt. The Torah describes it, and then the Torah gives us the first mitzvah in addition to the mitzvah of commemorating Passover with the Paschal lamb and the matzah and all that. The Torah says that the firstborn is holy, because God saved the firstborn of the Jewish people as he struck the firstborn of the Egyptians. So for generations to come, the firstborn is holy, belongs to God. Initially, they were supposed to actually serve in the temple, but they lost it when they have sinned in the golden calf. But till today, we have to cherish the firstborn. We know there's a special mitzvah called Pidyon Haben, to redeem the firstborn male. The mitzvah that doesn't happen very often, but the mitzvah that happens, it's common. And this applies, by the way, for human beings and also for animals. Let's read this inside. Verse 1 and 2 in chapter 13. God spoke to Moses saying, Kaddish li kol b'chor, sanctify to me every b'chor, every firstborn. Heter kol rechem b'vnei Yisrael, the first of each womb among the children of Israel. But Adam applies to human beings. Uva behema, and animals. Lihu, it's mine. I want this for myself. I want the firstborn, special to me. So with an animal, we actually bring it as an offering in the temple. But as a human being who's born, the firstborn, we have to redeem them. The Kohen has to redeem them. So there's a ritual. There's the way it's done, that the Kohen comes and the father of the boy, of the baby, once the baby is 30 days old, we do this swipe where one gives the exchange on coins. We redeem the firstborn from the Kohen back to the family. Oh, we're able to have our baby back because we're able to redeem our firstborn, because really God wanted the baby for himself. Just as a side note, I want to continue to talk about the four sons. The reason why it's not so common is because there's a lot of qualifications, a lot of conditions in order to be obligated in this mitzvah of redeeming the firstborn. First of all, we said it has to be a male child first to the womb, which means if a mother, for whatever reason, had a previous pregnancy that lasted more than 40 days, or perhaps maybe there's questions exactly when that begins and when it's considered a fetus. But if the mother had, for whatever reason, an abortion or a miscarriage or any other type of pregnancy that lasted left for a few weeks, then the child that's born after that is not necessarily considered the firstborn child. Also, if the mother is a Kohen or a daughter of a Kohen or a Levite, also, or the father obviously is a Kohen or a Levite, we also don't do the mitzvah of the redeeming the firstborn. So what ends up happening is that very, very common, very often, even if the firstborn is a boy, we don't necessarily do the mitzvah of redeeming the firstborn. As a mohel, I could say that very often I come to a family and our first child, the baby boy. I'm like, wow, amazing. Well, obviously we do the bris, and then I speak to them about perhaps we should look into doing the mitzvah of Pidyon Haben, redeeming the firstborn. And the first question I ask them after finding out that they're not a Levite or a Kohen, I say, was this the first pregnancy? Did you have a previous pregnancy before? And more often than not, there was a previous pregnancy. So, I don't say more often than not, or it's common, I should say, that there was a previous pregnancy. Therefore, it is very common, very often not done. But every once in a while, there'll be a story. Oh, there is a Pidyon Haben. Come to synagogue. We do a little mitzvah. We have a little meal just to celebrate this beautiful mitzvah of redeeming the firstborn. But after we say this, we have verse 3. Verse 3 of Vayomer Moshe Ala'am, Moshe says, speaks to the nation. Zachor es hayom hazeh. Remember this day, Asher yitzasem miMitzrayim, that you left Egypt. Mibeis avodim, from the house of bondage, of slavery. Ki v'choitzek yod ha'itzi Hashem eschem mizeh, because the outstretched, the mighty hand, God has taken you out from here. But lo yeyachal chametz, you should not eat any leavened bread, any chametz on this day. Interesting, the Torah says Zachar, remember. There's somewhere else where the Torah says remember, that's in regards to Shabbos. Zachar is saying Shabbos lekatchoy. Remember the holy day of Shabbos to sanctify it. And what does that mean? Remember constantly, every Shabbos, every week, you have to remember Shabbos. So too, our sages tell us that when Moshe over here tells us, remember this day that you left Egypt, this teaches us that we have to remember Egypt not just once a year on Passover, not just every once in a while Every single day we have to remember the exodus of Egypt. And that is why our sages, they told us like this. Torah gives us an obligation to say the Shema every day. Actually, twice a day. Once in the morning, once in the evening. We say the Shema. And there's 3 paragraphs to the Shema. There's the first verse, right? Shema Yisrael, right? There's the Va'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, the first paragraph. And it's understood that the first the biblical obligation to say the Shema is to say the first line, the first verse, plus the first paragraph. Some say that there's also an obligation to say the second paragraph, the longer paragraph, the second paragraph of the Shema. But then there's a third paragraph, right? The mitzvah of tzit. We add that third paragraph, which is not part of the Shema. But we say this every day when we say the Shema, whether we say it in prayer or we just say during the morning, evening prayer, or we just say it on our own. No matter when we say the Shema, but the Shema consists of 3 paragraphs. We have the first paragraph, the Shema, the V'ahavta paragraph. We have the second paragraph, the V'haya, just backwards on the screen. V'haya paragraph over here. But then we have the Vayomer paragraph right over here, which is added on. It's an addition. It's not a biblical addition. It's actually a rabbinic. Why? Because in this paragraph, we have the mention of I am God, your God, Asher Hotzeisi Eschem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, that has taken you out of the land of Egypt. So because we mentioned the land, the exodus of Egypt, and there's a mitzvah, as we just read, to mention the exodus of Egypt every single day. So the rabbis tell us, okay, you're saying Shema, let's just tag this on like this, you won't forget, and every day we will mention the exodus of Egypt. It's that important. That important to remember that we were once slaves and God has taken us out. And it's not just to remember an incident, but we know what that means. Being slaves doesn't always only mean a geographical confinement in the land of Egypt, but it really means our own self-confinements, our own little box, our own limitations that we have to break through every single day. Not enough to say, okay, today I went out of the box. Today I pushed myself. Today I left my little Egypt. Tomorrow I got to do it again. And the next day, and I got to grow, right? I expand my horizon. I expand my Egypt. But as long as there is a limit, up until this point I can do it. More than that I can't do. You're still living in Egypt. So every day you got to push the envelope a little bit. Push yourself every single day. Grow. And that is really the motto. What's so important as a Jew, always to remember every single day, remember the exodus of Egypt. But then there will be another child. The child will ask questions. And we're going to jump to verse 8. You turn the page in the Good Chumash on page 421, verse 8 of the same chapter, chapter 13. And you shall tell your child, your son, on that day, and you should tell him, because of this, in order to commemorate and to do all the special rituals on Passover, this is why God took us out of Egypt. If you notice, the Torah doesn't even mention that the child is asking a question, right? But you should take the initiative and tell your child about Passover. So right away, hey, the sages take note of that, and the sages says, this is another child. It's the child who doesn't even ask. The child isn't asking the question, but you have to notice the child and answer his question. Sometimes you see a child, you see a student, you see a friend, a fellow who is so ignorant, you could say, who they don't even know what to ask. But you see that they have questions. You see that they're wondering. They see that they don't know. You take the initiative. Well, no one asked me, I'm not going to answer. You see someone needs something, you see something, say something, right? You see a child that doesn't even know what to ask, if he got to tell the bincha, take the initiative and answer their questions. So that is the second child. We have the wicked child. We have the child who doesn't even ask. And then we jump a little bit to verse 14. And verse 14 talks about the third child. And it will be where your son will ask you tomorrow. tomorrow your son, in the future, your son is going to ask a question. And what's the question? Ma zois. What is this? It's a three-word question. What is this? Not very sophisticated. What? Just tell me what. You're having a Passover Seder, and you have some people who are asking specific questions. So why do you do this? What's right? Very sophisticated, very knowledgeable. But then you have a child who just says, what is this? What is this? They're asking you a question, but they don't know any details. There's no prior knowledge, just mazois. Tell me about this. What is this? And right away, the sages say, a third category of a child. This is a child who asks question, but is ignorant. It's called a tam, the ignorant child, or the simple child. The third category of a child. And this child is going to ask you macher in the future. There'll come a time there'll be someone who doesn't know much, but just asking a question. Mazois. And you have to answer them as well. And you should tell them with a strong hand, God took us out of Egypt from the house of bondage, etc. And then we have in Deuteronomy, we have another time a mention of a question of a child, and that is referring to the wise child. We have all the four children the four sons who ask questions, and we have a specific answer to each of these questions. I want to read again this last verse and give a beautiful explanation, I think, a very relevant idea on this verse, which is not so maybe literal, but maybe more homiletic, but I think a powerful message from this last question that we just mentioned, that in the future a child will ask you, Ma Zois, what is this? And I think it's very relevant to the time that we find ourselves in now. Since Simchas Torah, since October 7th, where it's been, I could say, extremely difficult for many in the Jewish community. And it's difficult for from various fronts. Obviously, just hearing the news out of Israel, there's so many. It's 100 days today, I believe. Today's, I think, the 100th day, or yesterday's 100 days. Okay. Since this atrocity occurred and is occurring, right, we still have 136 or 139, I can't. Hostages, too many exactly, who are in Gaza. We don't know exactly. No one has ever visited them to know exactly what their type of state they are in. We have from the north and the south, we know what's going on in Israel. So that's obviously very difficult for us. And then you have throughout the world, in America as well, you have the protests, you have the anti-Semitism, which kind of comes to the forefront. That's another front. That's a difficult front. But as I'm speaking to people, community, locally, outside of New Orleans, what I'm hearing, there's another strong or painful issue that some of the previous, older generation is experiencing now, and that is they are looking at their children or perhaps grandchildren, and they don't speak the same language. They feel like their grandchildren don't understand them, and in their mind don't understand the greater picture, the Jewish people, where they come from, right? It seems like we've lost touch. And I'm hearing this from multiple people in our community, that they're so pro-Israel and pro-Jewish, and we have to be more involved in Judaism today, but be proud of who we are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they tell me with a broken heart, but my grandchild sees it different. And that is the most painful, where your own children, your own descendants don't see it the way you see it. That's hard, that's difficult. And I think there's a message in this verse, how to deal with our children, with our sons who are asking these questions. And sometimes the questions are so foreign to us. It's like, how are you even asking this question? We just experienced Egypt. I mean, it's so real. We saw the miracles. We saw the plague. We saw Pharaoh. We saw Moses. We saw Aaron. We saw all that happened, the splitting of the sea. I mean, got the Torah. I mean, the whole experience is so vivid. It's so real. And now you're even questioning it. You don't know where we come from. Will there even be a day where people are not going to know that this happened? I mean, are people going to deny it? I mean, how is this even possible? That's the question that sometimes we can't even imagine that there'll be this question. And the Torah says, no, don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. There'll be a time that your sons are going to ask these questions. I want to read this inside. Again, verse 14. And it will be that your child will ask you machar. Machar in Hebrew means tomorrow. I see here in the Good Chumash they translated in the future. Where does that translation come from? Machar means tomorrow. It comes from Rashi. Rashi, the leading commentary on the Chumash, on the Torah, he comments over here that machar, and the source of this is actually Rashi himself doesn't bring a source. He says machar, sometimes machar means actually tomorrow. Machar can mean tomorrow. But sometimes machar, the Hebrew word machar, doesn't mean literally tomorrow. It means further down, in the future. In generations to come. It could be tomorrow, it could be in a week, it could be in a year, it could be in 100 years. Tomorrow, in the future. And he gives an example of a verse from Joshua, from the book of Yehoshua. Tomorrow, in the future, your sons will tell our sons. In the story of the children of Gad and Reuben. Now, interestingly, the Rashi doesn't just tell us that here machar means the future. Rashi specifies there is machar that sometimes means tomorrow, and sometimes it means in the future. And the Rebbe, in a beautiful talk, explains that there are two types of sons. There are some sons that will ask you a question tomorrow. In other words, inquisitive. People are asking questions. Not everyone has all the information, right? You were there. I wasn't. You know more than me. I'm going to ask a question. It's a healthy question. It's a question that comes from, I'm trying to study. I'm trying to learn. I'm on the same page as you are. You know more than me. Let me ask you a question. Tell me more details. Tell me how it was. What was the experience like? Tell me what you know that I don't know. Right? That's a tomorrow, literally tomorrow. Right? I was here. You weren't. We'll have this dialogue. We'll have this conversation. That's machar of tomorrow. Literally tomorrow. Your children who are on the same page as you are, they have the same modality of thinking, but they want more information. But then Rashi says, no. But in addition to that, there is a machar in the future. There are machar in the future where people are coming from a whole different perspective. It's totally in the future. They're not on the same page. Those sons will also ask questions. And he brings a proof from the verse in Joshua. But there the story is actually an interesting story where you can read more about it, where we know that right before the Jewish people that went to Israel, two of the tribes, and then later the half of Menashe agreed joined them as well, but the tribes of Gad and Reuben, they wanted to stay on the other side, on the east side of the Jordan. And after an exchange between them and Moses, they agreed upon that they will go in to Israel with the rest of the Jewish people and help fight and conquer the land. And then once it's all settled, they'll return back to the east side of the Jordan and settle over there with their families on the other side, outside of the borders of Israel. And that's exactly what happened. The story in the book of Joshua, they came in, they helped fight, and then eventually they left. Right after everything was settled, they left Israel. And when they left Israel, they built this big altar right near the Jordan River. They built a big altar. When the rest of the Jewish people, when they saw this, they got really angry. They said, is there a divide now within the Jewish people? They're building their own altar. They're going to be bringing their own sacrifices on a different altar outside of Israel, not in the main altar in the temple. Is there going to be now two separate Jewish people? There's going to be a divide. They got really angry. They actually wanted to go to war and fight them. They said, how can you do this? But before they did that, they actually sent, I think it was Pinchas and other of the elders, a delegation to speak to them to find out what's going on. Why are you building this altar? And they came and they spoke to them. They said, what is this? And they answered them, said, no. God forbid, we don't have any intention to actually offer sacrifices on this altar. God forbid. It's only monumental. It's only to remind us that, and here they quoted this verse, that in the future, our children will, and your children may have this conversation. And your children may ask our children, what is this all about? You're living over here, we're living over in Israel. Are we even the same nation? So we want to build this altar to remember that ultimately we're all united, to remember that we came and we fought and we came back. We use the word macher, the future, which means we're talking about people who are not going to understand what happened. We're coming, it's way in the future. People from a different perspective. And this is what the Torah tells us. That there will be a time, let's not fool ourselves. There will be a time that there's going to be a future where people are coming from a different place. They're going to ask these questions, these difficult questions. And we don't even understand where they're coming from. How could this be? And what do we do? The Torah says you have to answer them. Now, the answer can be read, interestingly, in two ways. The answer is that you should tell them that with a strong hand, with a mighty hand, God took us out of Egypt. But the answer could also, the answer that the Torah says could also be the solution or the reason why perhaps we have a child who is so far from our tradition and has these questions. Why would a child leave such a beautiful tradition? If they're raised in a loving family where Judaism and godliness and everything is so loved and cherished, why will there be a child in the future who's coming from a different perspective? How does this happen? So it's almost in the words over here. And it could be read, again, it's not literal, but it could be read into the words. You should tell them b'chayzik yad, the mighty hand. In other words, perhaps because of the mighty hand within Judaism, this is what kind of threw them off. The mighty hand represents a Judaism which is very tough, very difficult. And perhaps that is what threw off this child. If the child grew up in a home where Judaism was always, oh, we got to do this. Oh, we got to go to synagogue today. Oh, Passover is coming. Oh, man, right? This is terrible. It was too much gevura, too much might. Maybe that's the reason why the child didn't appreciate this way of life. There was once one of the great rabbis in the 20th century, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, who came from, I think, Russia or Europe, but he settled in the Lower East Side in Manhattan, I think in the 1920s to the 1930s. One of the greatest Torah scholars and halachic authorities in the 20th century. And I think it was with him where someone once came and complained about their child. Oh, my child, I'm trying to keeping, sticking with the ways of Judaism, but they're leaving. I'm having difficulty with it. So he asked him, he says, tell me, when you were, when you were home, what was something that you always would say at home? He said he always would say in Yiddish, "Oy, sie ist schwer zu sein Yid." How difficult it is to be Jewish. That was like an old Yiddish saying. "Oy, sie ist schwer zu sein Yid." Oy, it's difficult to be Jewish. He said, guess what? Your child wasn't interested in it. Why would I choose a difficult life for myself? I see my parents, my grandparents are having such a difficult time with it. So Why do I need it? I have other things I could do that wouldn't be so difficult, right? Why should I choose a difficult life? Instead, right. Instead of seeing the beauty of Judaism, it was always, oh, it's so difficult. Why am I doing it? I have to do it. I'm Jewish. I feel guilty if I don't do it, right? So we have this thing. I'm doing it because I'm forced. So if that's your attitude, why do you expect your children to embrace it? There was too much strength. Instead, you should say, "Oy, wie gut sie ist zu sein a Yid." How good it is to be Jewish. Wow, children, you don't believe it. Passover is coming. How excited are we? We're going to clean the house. We'll get the Passover stuff, dishes down. We'll get the matzah ready. Don't emphasize how difficult it is. Oh, man, Passover. I don't have time for this, right? This is beautiful. Beautiful that thousands of years later, we still have the opportunity to commemorate our freedom. The freedom from Egypt, the freedom from our personal Egypt. How beautiful is this? Which other nation has this? How lucky are we that we have a Shabbos every week? We're able to be together, go to synagogue, to pray, to connect with God, to forget what's going on in the world, forget about business, forget about everything else, shut down for 25 hours and spend it with God, spend it with family. How beautiful is this? I'm looking forward to this. How special is it that even when we're traveling and even we're always keeping kosher, maybe we don't have all the restaurants to go to, we don't have to pack our own food, but this is special, this is beautiful, this is our connection to God. Keeps us focused. I mean, instead of focusing on the don't do this and don't do that and how difficult it is, how hard it is, our child doesn't want that. But focus on the beauty of Judaism. How we have this opportunity as a mortal, finite human being to connect to the infinite. There's something greater than us, a greater power that we have a connection to. How much meaning this brings into our life. Our life isn't void of meaning and purpose. We're not searching and searching and searching. We have it. I mean, there's so much beauty of Judaism. This is what we have to teach our children. If it's always about the negative and how I have to do it, but I don't want to do it, then we'll have a child of machar. Then we'll have a child, not just tomorrow, is the child that wants to ask questions. It's going to be a child of the future who doesn't even understand where we're coming from. We have to, the answer is answering ourselves. The answer to this child is we have to change our attitude. We have to show the children how Judaism is beautiful. How beautiful and good and exciting it is to be Judaism, to be Jewish. And this is also how we have to educate our children in schools, whether it's in regular schools, in our religious schools, in our Sunday schools. Make it exciting. It's not just, hey, you have a bar mitzvah coming up. You got to make sure you're going to read the Torah nicely. I don't have any mistakes in the Torah reading, right? And the child is waiting for the day where bar mitzvah is over, right? I mean, recently, it was like a year or two ago, we had a bar mitzvah here at Chabad Metairie, and it was astonishing to see how the father was treating the child so almost like threatening the child. If you don't do well on your bar mitzvah, and we had to pull the father over and says, listen, like, allow your child to enjoy his bar mitzvah, not that I'm just going to get this over with and I'm free for the rest of my life and I don't want to see a synagogue again. And unfortunately, this is what happens when people feel that their whole Jewish education just to get through the bar mitzvah, just to get through that, and then we're done, right? And it's like a burden off the back. Oh, thank God, I'm free. I don't have to come back again. You know the story of the mice, right? I think I told this before. The story of the mice, where the rabbi had a problem with the mice in the synagogue. Not our synagogue. I mean, there are synagogues that have mice. So what did they do? He said he got a great solution. He gathered all the mice. He brought them onto the bima. He had 50 mice over there. And he ordered these mice-sized kippahs, these yarmulkes. He put on, every mice had a little yarmulke, a little prayer shawl, a little siddur. And he bar mitzvahed all the mice. He hasn't seen them since, right? So unfortunately, right, when we have that education where it's just like a burden, what do we expect? So the answer, so first of all, we have to answer the child. No matter what, no matter where they're coming from, don't ignore them. Don't say, this type of question, get out of my house. Don't even ask these questions. No. Kish'olcha bincha, your child will ask, even if it's machar, even if it's from a distant future, you don't even recognize them. Where are you coming from? How are you asking these questions? Answer them. Give them an answer. Sit with them. Talk to them. That's first of all. Don't ignore them. It's important. Secondly, you got to have some internal digging and understand, where does this come from? We have to change our attitude to allow our children to appreciate what we have. And whether it is with Judaism as a whole or with Jewish pride, perhaps as it is now, the main thing is answer questions, keep dialogue, try to embrace and have open communication. It's important not to ignore it, throw it under the rug, because ultimately, if we don't answer the questions remain, and then there's the next generation, and the next generation. The Torah always emphasizes, don't shy away from questions. Always ask questions. There are good answers, and keep, obviously in a respectful manner, keep the conversations going, keep the education going. We have a child, a grandchild asking these questions. Don't ignore it. Answer the questions, educate ourselves, and show how Judaism is exciting and nice and good and beautiful, and keep that dialogue going with our children, pass it on to the next generation. So that perhaps a little message from this week's Parsha. Thank you all for joining us. Shavua Tov, and looking forward to seeing you next week.